Rome, the Roman Empire itself, if you study the history, you're going to find out that Russia, or Gog and Magog, historically, going back in time, was connected to Rome. Europe came out of Rome. The United States came out of Europe. Is everybody with me today? So the western side of this image right here, to this very day, the western side of this image has the United States on the western side as the leader of the nations. And Europe and the United States of America are a part of the western side today in the UN. Okay? Russia, who is also originally, way back in history, Gog and Magog was a part of the Roman Empire. Today is the eastern leader in the UN. Okay, you with me right now? And we'll get there in just a minute. Okay, so it's interesting. So when we look at this image then, Rome has two legs. It's got a western side and an eastern side. That means Europe, who is in the western side, cannot be the only power of these two legs. Because if it is, you got the image standing on one leg. There has to be an eastern side and a western side to this image. In the western side, yes, Europe and the United States of America are in the western side of the Roman Empire. We all have roots in that Roman Empire. Russia is over the eastern side. But just give me a little bit of time and we'll get there. What I'm trying to tell you is that this image with the Roman Empire here, two legs, and then eventually in 10 toes, the United States of America is in this image. You are in that image. Because again, on the western side, Europe came out of Rome. Remember, Rome is the capital city. Europe came out of Rome, and the United States came out of Great Britain. She's the mother of us all. Is everybody awake? So we are in this image. Okay. When you go down to, the Bible talks about here at the foot of this image of iron and clay, the Roman Empire, the Eastern Western Division. What you have right here are 10 toes. The Bible says about those 10 toes is it's made up of iron and what? Clay. And that clay's tile. It's hard. It's brittle. It's not soft. It's hard and it's brittle. And Daniel goes on and tells you about this iron mingled with clay in the toes of this image. If there's iron there, that means we have Rome. Correct? That's right. Rome's influence is there. But we've also got some clay. And they won't mingle together. Let's read what the Bible says. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. Whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, now we're down to the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Now, so when we look at the 10 toes then, and they're flowing out of the Roman Empire, in the Roman view, then this must be the Roman Empire revived in the last days, or the Roman Empire reconstituted in the last days. Because the feet are a part of the legs, and we have the iron that's in the legs in the toes. So that's where people get the 10 toes of Daniel being a picture of a revived Roman Empire in the last days, which a lot of prophecy teachers say that's Europe and the many nations that are in Europe, which came out of Rome. That's where they get that. Amen. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? So that's why they say to look for a revived Roman Empire in the last days, or a reconstructed Roman Empire that's made up of 10 nations, 5 on one side, 5 on the other side, 5 on the western side, 5 on the eastern side, ultimately in the last days. Are y'all with me here? Okay. Is everybody awake? But really, this is not a revived Roman Empire. Really, this is not a reconstructed Roman Empire. What it is a Babylonian revival. Are y'all awake tonight? Okay. Now, let me just give you a little facts here, and I'm not going to go into great detail. I would encourage you to listen to a message. It's called Babylon Revived. If your computer counts or numbers the Revelation series, it's number 43 in the Revelation series on YouTube. It's called Babylon Revived. And it will give you great detail because we go into the book of Revelation 13 and 17 where the Bible talks about that future world power that's going to be really a conglomeration of all of these four powers into one. And I show you it's a revived Babylonian empire, okay? So listen to that and it will shock you because that was preached many, many years ago. But let me give you some understanding here. Right before Jesus Christ comes back, there is going to be in the earth a revived Roman Empire, a reconstituted Roman Empire, which is really Babylon. Okay? I want you to catch that. In the form of 10 nations. Now, Daniel 7, the 10 horns on this nondescript beast, the 10 horns represent or parallel the 10 toes of Daniel chapter 2. 10 horns of iron, I believe. You with me? Okay. And from those 10, the Antichrist rises. Notice where they're laid over. They're laid over the tribulation period. So at the beginning of the tribulation period, there will be an individual, according to Daniel chapter 9, that will come on the scene. And he will make a covenant with Israel. Now listen to me. He will make it strong. Daniel 9, look at it very carefully. There's one that's going to arise. He's going to be like this man right here, an autocracy. He wants to rule the world as a man by himself. Is everybody awake? The Bible calls him the Antichrist. Could be the second beast in the book of Revelation as well, because you have two beasts in Revelation 13, a government leader and a religious leader, etc. But I'm not going to get into a lot of that right now. The point is that from 10 horns in Daniel 7, 10 toes of Daniel 2, this Antichrist will rise to power. Okay? Is everybody awake here? He's going to make the covenant strong. Now, what I'm about to say is maybe going to challenge your thinking. But everybody today is looking for a man to rise on the scenes that is going to make some kind of covenant of peace with the nation of Israel. And that Israel is going to enter into a peace treaty because of this Antichrist. That is very possible. But you have to understand as you go through the book of Daniel that the covenant the Bible talks about, especially in Daniel chapter 11, is the Mosaic covenant. So yes, this future ruler that's going to rise from the 10 horns or the 10 toes, if you will, a revived Roman Empire, he's going to enter into a treaty for 7 years. But what is that treaty? You call it a peace treaty or whatever. Well, the Bible talks about the covenant in the book of Daniel has to do with the Mosaic covenant. So it could be much more than just a peace treaty that this man comes into the world and makes with Israel. All right, you with me here now? Because that's what everybody's looking for. But it could be what he does when he rises to power. He enforces the Mosaic covenant for 7 years. Because the Bible says in the midst of the week, he will break that covenant. He will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to stop. So the sacrifice and the oblation is connected to the covenant of Moses. So I'm challenging your thinking tonight to think bigger than just somebody that's coming to bring a peace treaty to Israel. Hallelujah. I'm challenging your thinking. Yes, that could be true. But it could be a man that says he is a Jew on his mother's side, probably from the tribe of Dan, who will rise up out of the land the Bible talks about here. In Revelation, this lamb-like person that rises up out of the earth right here. Amen, you're with me right here. He looks like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. And he's called the second beast. Are y'all with me here? The first beast rises up out of the sea. Gentile multitudes and nations. Are y'all with me? Probably a political Gentile ruler. But the one that rises up out of the land speaks of the nation of Israel. And the Bible says he looks like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. So what I'm trying to tell you, that the one that rises up out of the land could be the one that causes the peace treaty, if you will, or the Mosaic covenant to be placed in force for 7 years. Now, you know, if that man is a Jew and he rises out of the land and he looks like a lamb, but he's got power. And he says to the rabbis of this day, he says, we will enforce the covenant of Moses. You can build your temple and you can start your sacrificial system again. The sacrifices and oblations can begin again. You can set up your priesthood again. And he makes it a law for 7 years. But in the middle of the week, the Bible says, he will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Daniel 11 calls it the Holy Covenant. Are y'all awake tonight? So there is going to be a ruler that will rise up. Out of you will a revived or reconstructed Roman Empire, which we know is nothing more than Babylon, mystical Babylon in the end times. Are y'all awake tonight? So keep your eyes open for somebody that comes on the scene out of the land of Israel. Woo! Either he starts out in Rome, one of the powers connected to Rome, either the western side or the eastern side. Are you with me right now? It has to be more than Europe. There has to be an eastern side and a western side. Look for a man. He may rise out of those powers in the future and then move to Israel, or he may literally come up out of the land of Israel. And he will begin to talk about establishing the covenant of Moses once again. And I want to ask you a question. Do you believe the Jewish rabbis would accept Donald Trump as their ruler? Do you think that they would accept Putin to be their ruler? I'm just asking you, do you think that Israel, Jews, would accept a Gentile to be their ruler? No, I believe he's going to be a Jew out of the lands, but he could come out of the Roman Empire. But the Roman Empire, the eastern western side, is much more than just Europe. But when he gets in Israel, either he starts there or he goes there. I believe, my personal opinion, after studying this and using rabbinic interpretations and studying rabbinic understandings of the passages, that the covenant that he makes is not necessarily just a treaty with the nations. It's a treaty with the rabbis that say, you can now get under your Mosaic covenant for 7 years. You can build your temple. You can do your rituals again. You can set up your priesthood again. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, keep your eyes on an individual that rises in these last days that's talking about setting up Israel under the Mosaic covenant again. Are y'all awake? Is everybody awake? Now, these 10 horns in Daniel 7, 10 toes in Daniel chapter 2. The Bible tells us in Daniel 2 that in the time of those kings, those 10 toes that's coming out of the Roman Empire, at that time, that's when the Lord's going to come back and he's going to set up his kingdom. That's why it's so significant. All right. All right. You ready? Mystical Babylon in the book of Revelation is called mystical Babylon for a reason. Because if you have Babylon, if it's just called Babylon, that means it needs to be in the old geographical location of Babylon. Babylon ancient history is Iraq. Medo-Persian in ancient history is modern day Iran. You still have today, you with me, Greece. You still have a Roman Empire in the form of Europe, if you will. We're waiting for this final form that's going to come with an eastern and a western division. Is everybody awake? Okay, are you with me up to this point? So I've talked to you about the ruler coming up and who he possibly is, but watch. If you have 10 toes, you got one big toe on each foot. And then you got 4 little toes, eastern side and a western side. Which means Europe, the western side, it can't be both eastern and western. You with me? We got the image standing on one leg. You can't forget this. So what the Bible's showing you, that the final form of revived Roman Empire, reconstructed Roman Empire, which is really Babylon revived, what we have is an eastern and western division. Amen? 5 toes on one foot and 5 toes on the other. Eastern and western division. Okay, everybody with me? Okay. Big toe in the eastern side. Still connected to Rome historically. Right now in the UN is Russia. Eastern side, excuse me. The eastern side, Russia today is the leader of the eastern side of 5 nations. There's 5 permanent nations in the UN right now. The western side, the big toe on the western leg is guess who? Today is the United States of America. They are the ruler over the western side of the UN. Is everybody listening today? Today, am I losing you? Okay. Today, you have what's called the United Nations. It is in New York, New York. I use the term mystical Babylon because mystical Babylon doesn't have to be geographically Babylon because it's a mystery form of Babylon. It's religion, it's politics, it's economics, it's government. It's rooted in Babylon. Is everybody awake? Mystical Babylon, mystery Babylon, not literal Babylon, mystery Babylon. Revelation 17, the Bible says she's riding on the back of a scarlet colored beast. Is everybody awake? The United Nations today could be these 10 toes. But it's not in its final form. Today you have 5 permanent members. You have the United States of America. You have Russia. You with me? You have France, you have Greece, and you have England. Those are the 5 permanent rulers in the UN today. So we don't have the final form of 10 yet. We've got 5 permanent rulers. But what is interesting is that the East-Western division is already established in the UN. So that Russia is the Eastern ruler and the United States is the Western ruler. New York, New York, where the UN is located, if you walk into the UN building, when you go into that UN building, there are Babylonian images all over that building. In fact, in my studies in the past, I came across that there are 10 seats in a room, and 11th seat, another seat, 11 seats in that room, a council room. So the Bible talks about 10 horns, and another horn would rise up, a little horn, which would, from among the 10. You with me? And the UN today has 11 seats that's in a circle. And you can go into the UN and you can sit down in the UN and you can see Babylonian images all over the walls of the UN in New York, New York. And guess what? Just a short ways away from New York, New York is a little city called Babylon. So personally, when I look at the book of Revelation 13 and 17, I see the book of Daniel and these 10 toes and 10 horns. It is very possible that what you have in the United Nations today is the beginning of these 10 nations. Because, listen to me, the 5 permanent states that are in the UN today, Russia, United States, Greece, France, and England, every one of them, brothers and sisters, historically are rooted in Rome. Every one of them. Did you know that? So we still have the Eastern and the Western Division of the United Nations, 5 permanent members, and they're all rooted in Rome to this day. Are y'all awake? Give God some praise in the house. So instead of looking for the Antichrist to rise from just Europe, well, you got a problem there because you only got the western side of that image. It's got 2 legs and 10 toes, 5 on each foot. And I'm not even saying the UN fulfills it. But to me, it's the boldest attempt that I've ever seen. It's not in its final form yet. But it's really interesting the way that it's set up. Everybody give God praise in the house. So in the future, when that final form comes, the 10 toes and 10 horns, that 11 horns rises up to power. And that 4th beast here, paralleling the fourth power here of Rome, going into the toes, amen. This is the body right here of the Roman Empire, eventually into 10 horns and 1 ruler over them. And the Bible says these 10 kings will give their power to the beast. Whew. When I get to Daniel chapter 11, I'm going to show you how much power that beast is going to have. It's going to blow your mind what a man is about to do when he comes on the scene. I'm not going to preach it to you tonight. But when you look at the problems of the world today, economic problems, military problems, all the chaos and confusion, all of that stuff that's going on, people are looking for an answer. When I show you Daniel chapter 11, that man that will rise to power, what he's going to do, it's exactly what the world is looking for and crying for today. Are y'all awake? Okay. The Bible says this. In verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So whatever eventually the final form is of this revived Roman Empire, reconstituted Roman Empire, really Babylon revived, what we have to understand, brothers and sisters, is that it's iron and clay, and they don't mix. The iron is strong, the clay is brittle.